All right, everybody. Thanks for coming. This is our 7th meeting. We are almost at the middle of our way this semester. I'm very glad to be here and to be responsible for this course. We are teaching here Behavioral Economics of Global Affairs. Right. We are talking about global affairs here and there. We're going to talk about global warming, sustainability, immigration, prejudice. Some of this stuff we have already mentioned and we kind of have dealt with it. But so far, we have focused on describing and understanding individual behavior. So we have looked at cognitive biases, we have looked at bounded rationality, we have looked at prospect theory, the way people deal with risks, how they make choices under uncertainty. And we have discussed a bunch of characteristics of how the human brain actually works. We are trying to separate here whatever is cultural aspects of decision making and behavior, and we are trying to identify those features that are common, that are typical, regardless of the place you were born. So if you are from Northeast Brazil, if you are from Recife, or if you are from Belo Horizonte, Minas Gerais, like myself, or if you are from America, from France, or I don't know, China, we're still going to be talking about uh, elements of human behavior that are universal, okay? They are all over the place. It's true that cultural traces, cultural aspects may reinforce or weaken some of these uh, tendencies in human behavior, but they are universal, okay? Now, right after that, we started talking about organizational behavior. And then we discussed for a while this very, very strange form of organization, which we call garbage can organizations. Some people call them organized anarchies. So, what was that about again? Well, in that case, we were talking about some behaviors that will happen in any form of organization. But in some cases, they are very frequent, and many times they are not there. Wait. Am I back? Voltei aqui, estão me ouvindo? Acho que nós tivemos uma travada aqui na minha internet. Acho que eu voltei. Tô vendo o joinha aqui, agora sim. Desculpem, pessoal. Eu acho que a minha internet hoje está menos confiável do que eu gostaria. Tá todo mundo me ouvindo? Só para eu ficar mais tranquilo aqui. Obrigado, Morgana. Obrigado, André, Jamile. Ótimo. Okay, guys. So I was trying to remind you of some of the things that we have already discussed. So I was describing many of the aspects of individual behavior. And then I started talking about garbage can organizations, or the garbage can model of organizational behavior. And then what we had there is like apparently very strange organizations in which people don't participate all the time. Their preferences are changing all the time. And even the way we do stuff, the technology, the procedures, the protocols that we follow, all of them seem to be uncertain. We change the way we do stuff here and there. So it seemed like we were talking about a very bad company or a very bad, very poorly organized company. But that was not the point. The point was to remember that as long as you have people inside organizations, at least some part of the time, we are going to observe those kind of aspects. So here and there, you're going to have situations, even in a very good company, very profitable one, successful one, sometimes people will behave like that. And decisions will not follow this rational, expected pattern of behavior, all right? So we're going to see this a little bit as we move in our course. We're going to see that many times in a modern uh, era like this, many times important organizations tend to behave like that. And we will be specifically concerned whenever we are talking about budget meetings, deciding which resources will be applied to which projects. Well, those sorts of meetings and decision making in general, those tend to uh, reveal aspects that are pretty much um, online in accordance to the, the garbage can model. All right. Now, for today, I have a very specific um, goal. We want to talk a little bit about how sometimes good people do bad stuff. So we're going to talk about organizational behavior and a very specific kind of behavior. We're going to talk about unethical behavior, right? So when you do stuff that later on, if people ask you, you may say, you know what? Yeah, I knew, yeah, I shouldn't have done that. You may regret of doing some stuff. And sometimes you're going to have that, we're going to see that features of the organization, they put pressure on people. Wait a minute. Luis, you are not trying to save the world and consider that everyone is good in the bottom of their heart. They are still good and we are all victims of some sort of context. No, that's not what I'm saying, okay? There are bad people out there. We know that. There are crooked people out there. Evil, it's a reality. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that sometimes even good people do bad stuff. Professor, por que não moral e sim ético? Moral não está mais ligado ao comportamento? Well, that's a good question. To a certain extent, ethics and morality, they are pretty much the same. Sometimes we have some differences depending on exactly specific circumstances. But from this point, we are going to understand that they are similar, okay? So if I'm talking about unethical behavior, you may understand them as immoral, at least at this beginning, okay? So before we started this class, I was asking you a few things about how classes are going. So we are all in this different situation. We are having classes through the computers. Sometimes we have to study in our room, in our bedroom. We don't have sometimes a good office like this with a silent context, and it's hard to get focused. Sometimes it's hard to get a good performance in a class. Now, some of you may have very good conditions to study right now. Some people, on the other hand, they may not even get a good internet connection. So your wireless router is working, your internet connection is working or not. So we are seeing this kind of unusual environment, a different context, and things are not easy, right? Now, let's suppose that we are having the regular class at UFRPE. Então, suponha que a gente está de volta lá ao ensino presencial. If I gave you a test and ask you, okay, guys, this is an easy quiz, it's an easy test. Please take some time working through these questions. I'm gonna head back to my office, pick up something that I forgot, and you guys keep working there, okay? I'll be back in 15 minutes. So it's the usual stuff. The majority of you will not start cheating. The vast majority of you will not pick up your books, trying to check the answers, to cheat on this test, right? After all, it's a quick test, it's not that difficult, and people are looking at each other and they say, come on, you don't need that. This is an easy test. It's not something like, wow, I'm going to lose this semester, I'm going to fail the whole semester. It's not like this, right? So there is little tension. You're not too worried, you're not too preoccupied, you're doing fine, and you are taking the exam or this quiz, this test. All right? Now, as we increase tension, let's say, oh, hey, this is the finals. If you don't get a good grade in this test, you're going to fail your whole semester. Well, this is a little scarier. I mean, people may be like, I don't know, can I get some help here? Maybe this friend of mine he can help me and things like that. So if you raise the tension, people will be more inclined to do bad stuff. Now, suppose that I come back to this class and I see that some of the people are actually working together. I see a couple of students and they are exchanging information about their exams, and you are all the way back there in a different part of the class. You can see that, but you don't have anyone around you to ask and to exchange information or to help and get help. I don't know. So, do you think if you see me and I'm observing some other people exchanging information, cheating on the test, do you think that this observation will change your behavior? What do you say? Se vocês me virem e eu estou aplicando esse teste e eu vejo duas pessoas colando e eu não faço nada, eu dou uma risada, falo, ó, gente, para aí e tal, e viro as costas e deixo. Isso muda a forma como você vai atuar? Você fica inclinado a pegar o seu livro e copiar a resposta de alguma coisa? What do you say, guys? It may be in Portuguese, don't worry. Let me hear from you. Oh, I see what's happening here. You guys don't want to compromise. You don't want to expose yourself. Ah, não, isso já aconteceu na aula do professor fulano. Beltrano e Ciclano fizeram aquilo. All right, guys, I understand. This is not a good way to study, to make questions and get you to answer in public. But let me tell you a story, okay? So here comes this guy, Dan Ariely. You guys have heard about him, right? When we talked about irrational behavior, nudge, many times we have mentioned this guy, Dan Ariely. Dan Ariely. Okay, so this guy, he started making some tests, and as always, the objective, the subject was behavior of college students. A great majority of behavior economics experiments, they end up being performed with college students. Then again, that's what we have so far. But here comes the test. He presents people some questions. Some of them are difficult mathematical questions. Some other are not so difficult. And they say, please participate in this exam. And regardless of your grade, I'm gonna give you 10 bucks. Eu vou te dar R$ 50 para você participar de um teste. Eu só quero saber o nível de matemática das pessoas. Alright, so when you finish trying to solve the questions, you come to the front of the room and there is someone there, like an assistant, and the person asks you, how many do you think you got right? And if the person says, oh, I think I got it 70%, I don't know. Oh, you got 70%? Okay, so here's 50 reais. And as you did so well, I'm going to give you some more money. I'm going to give you 20 more reais. That's it. Now, as other people are looking at this scene, they understand that this guy will not check your affirmative. He's not actually checking the solutions and say, yeah, you got 70%. This person is delivering you money, just trusting how you describe your performance. So as people come and present their solutions, they say, oh, I got 50%. 50% of them correct. Okay, so you got 50 reais. And so on. Now, as people keep coming and observing, the assistant guy is actually destroying the test. As long as people finish taking the exam, he goes there and destroys the exam. You know, like the paper shredder, cortador de papel, tem um cortador de papel logo do lado assim. A pessoa entrega o exame, ele vai lá e destrói e pergunta para ela quanto que ela acha que ela acertou. And according to that information, the person gives people money, okay? All right. As this thing keeps going on, what do you think will happen to the last few of the students in the class? You know, by the end of the time, people that are there, probably they had a hard time trying to solve the questions. That's why they are still there. Do you think that these guys understand how things work there? And do you think they are more or less inclined to lie, to say that they had a better performance than they actually did? Well, it turns out that the experiment was exactly this. It seemed like the test was being destroyed, but that was a fake paper shredder. So after all, everything is recorded on tape, and you can check what people said and how they actually did in the exam. Okay, so they, after all, the teachers there, the researchers there, they could check exactly who lied and how much people lied. It turns out that if you realize that you're not going to get caught, then you actually tend to lie. But that increases a lot if you put pressure and if you somehow demonstrate to others that people are allowed to lie. So it's like people actually don't lie. They tend to adhere to hold on to the rules most of the times. But if people observe other people getting benefits from lying, then you have an incentive. What I'm trying to say here is this. Ethical behavior is a mix of two things: individual decisions, your personal inclinations towards honesty, towards ethics, but people also behave influenced by the context, by what's happening around them. And that explains a lot, right? Sometimes you have people uh, making a blind eye, pretending they don't see something that it is actually questionable, right? Just because you are in a strong context. So our class today starts with this circumstances. And in order to motivate that, I posted a video for you guys. Please raise your hand if you had the chance to watch the video about the emperor's new clothes. All right, Igor, thanks. Who else? Morgana. Jaime, did you have the chance? Marcelo? All right, who can tell us the story in Portuguese very briefly? What is that video about? It's a fairy tale, right? É uma espécie de uma fábula, um conto de fadas. How does that go? It's too long. No, it is not. It's just a few minutes. So I'm going to describe to you what happens there, right? So this is the old kingdom, Middle Ages. And then there is this king, and he's full of vanity. He likes to show off. He likes to show how well dressed he is, how elegant he is. And some crooks discover that, and they want to, I don't know, to have him con, to to get money from him in an unethical way. All right, so basically they come and say, oh, we are very specialists in incredible sorts of suits, of clothes, and you as a king, you should recognize how good we are. We have this very special material, and we are here to present you some new clothes. And the king actually believes them, and he hires them to create his new clothes. Um, but it turns out that they tell a lie. They say, look, in order to, this is such a special material that people who are ignorant or incompetent, they can't see it. Se você for ignorante, incompetente, estúpido, você não consegue sequer ver a beleza daqueles trajes, daquela roupa. All right, so you see how it goes. I think some of you have probably heard about this story. So it turns out that because people are afraid of being considered stupid, they keep telling everybody that they can see, and they are seeing nothing. It's like showing air to you and say, look how beautiful this shirt is. And you say, I don't see any shirt. What, is there something in Louis' hands? No, there's nothing. But you tell a lie, many people observe each other, and as long as they see that other people are lying, they are embarrassed to call out the lie and say, hey, I don't see anything. So what's going on here? It's sort of a conformity. It's a way of getting people to avoid their ability to criticize, to think independently, and just join the herd. Like everybody's saying something, I will say the same thing. Let me get you some slides here that will actually help in this analysis, okay? Okay, so there we are. This is the message of the video. This video, guys, it was recorded for a Coursera course, right? It's called Unethical Decision Making in Organizations. By the way, I took those classes and they are incredible. This Professor Palazzo, he is from Lausanne University of Lausanne in Belgium, I think. And basically, he tells you the story. Here's how it goes. But what is about this story that is so important to us here? If we want to understand good people doing bad things inside organizations, we have to understand how important the context is and how sometimes an individual person may get a hard time trying to um, work or to think independently, to not join and conform, right? So some of the elements that these guys try to raise here, try to highlight here, we are going to have a look at them. The first one is narrow framing. Now, we have talked about narrow framing before. Remember, framing is like enquadramento. Dependendo da maneira como você enquadra uma questão, você apresenta uma questão, as pessoas podem tomar diferentes decisões. Depending on how narrow the framing is, just focusing on a small part of the picture, people may end up having like absolutely irrational behavior from a very small part of the picture. They don't understand what's going on, right? So narrow framing is the first problem that we have in organizations. Let's hold on here and let's talk about this thing in real life. What happens in a company, like in a private company, is that you have people very much specialized in doing very small parts of the job. As pessoas se especializam em fazer partes muito específicas no trabalho. What is your job here? Oh, I just take this material and I perform such and such tasks and then I pass it on. Some other people will do the next stage and then by the end of the time I may have this, I don't know, this gun or this truck. So if my specialty is very limited, if I am expected to only work a part of the job, part of the production line, I may not end up what's happening through the whole picture. Now, this is essentially a very important thing because we understand back from Adam Smith that the great importance of companies is because they help specializing and giving scale to production. As long as you hire experts to do specific parts of the job, we can actually have a very good production system. And at the same time, if you do that in large scales, in large quantities, then you can end up producing and selling stuff that is good quality and very low price. But notice, those are the good features of capitalism, and at the same time, they may be weakness in organizations. Because if you narrow the frame, if each person only is responsible for a smart part of production, this person may not end up realizing what's going on. What's the company is really about. You see? You guys understand what I'm trying to say here, right? The narrow framing is a typical characteristics of most of the companies. So we have a problem here. Many times, more often than not, people will have a very small understanding of what their their companies are doing, their bosses are doing, all right? But then again, if it's ignorant, people are not working as unethically, right? If you don't know what's going on, people cannot question you. Se você está fazendo uma coisa lá, um trabalho muito especializado, e você não está vendo para onde que a empresa está indo, aí ninguém pode dizer que você foi responsável por um comportamento antiético. Let's go back to the 70s. Em 1970, a indústria do tabaco, dos cigarros. Bom, a pessoa trabalhava lá para uma indústria de tabaco e ela usava o dinheiro que ela recebia para sustentar a família dela. Não tem nada de antiético nisso. Mas e na medida que as pessoas vão questionando o tabagismo, se o cigarro começa a ter uma clareza de que ele causa câncer, de que ele provoca a morte, o adoecimento das pessoas, e aí? Well, I still have to earn my money. I still have to earn and to pay for my expenses. I will not quit my job. I mean, I'm just doing a job here. I'm not, I mean, who is deciding to smoke? They are responsible. I don't have anything to do with that. You see what I'm trying to say here? Sometimes people in companies, they have a glimpse of something that is not going exactly well, but they prefer to hold on to the narrow view of what they are doing. And now you guys can see some ethical issues here, right? The second element in the story is fear. If you are afraid you're going to lose your job, most likely you're going to shut up, right? You're not going to raise your hand and say, come on, is this right? Should we actually do that? If your boss is someone that could, I don't know, immediately have you thrown out of the company, you are afraid of that. So fear is an important element in unethical behavior in organizations. But there are some other stuff here. Some stuff that can be completely able to circle a person and to somehow push them to behave in certain ways. We are going to call those things strong contexts. You can see here, right? Strong contexts. Those are contexts that can be stronger than reason. So you will prefer stop thinking and do whatever people tell you. That's scary, right? But then again, it happens. We have to understand that many people work for companies, and these companies sometimes they do terrible stuff. And if you ask a person working in that company, he will tell you, look, I never realized how bad those things were. And they may be a little bit hypocritical, but sometimes they're just saying, I needed a job. I couldn't quit. I need the money. I have kids. I have to pay for my family expenses and stuff, right? Now, some other elements that we see both in the fairy tale, the emperor's new clothes, but also we see in companies. We see poor or authoritarian leadership. So bosses that are very much like that. They tell you what to do. They don't want to hear your opinion. Okay, so this is bad sign too. We have excessive trust on routines. We have group pressure. It's like everybody's doing this. You have to comply. You have to work as everyone here works. Please don't try to be different. Don't try to be special. We are working here as a team. If everybody's accepting that, please do the same. We have embarrassment. Some people just, I don't know, they are ashamed of their own thoughts. We have arrogance, ego. So you have lots and lots of elements in human brain, of human minds. Those are human traces. As long as you have people in organizations, you're going to have to deal with ego, with arrogance, vanity, sometimes stupidity, and even incompetence. It happens all the time. So sometimes people take advantage of all those things and they either uh, perform bad stuff in a company or perform bad stuff against that company, all right? But let's hold on to some very specific concepts here, okay? The first one is ethical blindness. Do you think, do you trust me when I say that sometimes people can actually get blind from some ethical aspects of decision making? Vocês acreditariam que eu dissesse para vocês que algumas vezes as pessoas ficam completamente cegas, blindness, cegueira, cegas para aspectos éticos envolvidos no seu, no seu trabalho, no seu trâmite? Well, it turns out that these things happen, okay, guys? We're going to talk about good people who go to church, who help their neighbors, who make donations to, I don't know, the poor, and to our good-hearted people. But once they get inside the company, they can't see how bad things are going there, and they actually perform some acts that are clearly, from outside, clearly questionable, okay? So people do deviate from their own values. This behavior, it's context bounded, which means you only do that when you are in the company. If you leave the company, you wouldn't behave like that. And sometimes it is unconscious, at least partially. That's why we call ethical blindness. Now, ethical blindness, it is an extreme case, and it is not always the case, all right? Sometimes you have like the court and the judge, and here comes some legal procedure, and the judge asks the person, come on, tell me what you saw. And the person will say, oh, I saw nothing. You know, sometimes people lie. But there are some evidences that in specific cases, people actually cannot see ethical aspects of everyday decision making. Okay? The second point is what we call strong contexts. So those are contexts that can overpower people's reason, people's values, good intentions. They may seem completely irrational if you look from outside, but if you are in the company, working every day there, they seem natural, okay? There are three levels of strong context. You can have like situational contexts, like you have to finish a job no matter what. Just finish this thing and bring me the results. If you have this time pressure, if you have a situation which is very much tense, it's tense and you have to get through, sometimes people just do bad stuff. The second element of strong context is organizational context. I want to refer to you to a Bembev, né, que é a maior companhia de refrigerantes, cervejas do Brasil e uma das maiores do mundo, né? É a que produz Antártica, produz, enfim, Brahma, esses produtos todos. Okay, in this company, competition is fierce and sometimes it's kind of bizarre, you know? And this is like, it's true, it works like that. They say, we want people here to compete. So you don't have a friend, a colleague working with you. It's not exactly your friend. He's a competitor. The boss comes and say, all right, guys, you're 4 people working in this sector. By the end of the month, there will be only 2 of you here. So let's see what you can deliver. So this kind of competition is promoted by the company. You see, if that's the case, sometimes two guys can get together and say, let's kick the other two out. Let's work together and let's cheat on this, I don't know, task that we are supposed to perform, and let's get these other two guys out. So this is not ethical at all, but sometimes organizations do encourage this sort of behavior. You see, this is bad stuff. I mean, the people may come and say, "Come on, Luis, I was there. I needed a job. I had reasons to behave like that. That's the way the company works. I didn't want to work differently. I mean, what I was expected to do. I was expected to do exactly that." And finally, there is this third aspect of strong context is when you have institutional context. Now, when I say institution here, I'm trying to say something that goes a long way back. So it's like a practice that has been performed for generations, right? So if you have a tradition of working this in this way, and then you may not even see what's going on. I mean, sometimes when you compare different cultures, you may see, for example, how in different countries people treat women. And in some of these countries, considering women inferior, it's supposedly natural. No, this is part of God's will. This is what's supposed to be. You know, women should obey men. For how long, even here in the Occident, right? I mean, in countries like Brazil, America, France, or Italy, for a long time, we have behaved like that, right? This is true. So there are some culture and some institutional aspects of that. What is socially accepted as being okay? Sometimes it may be even violence. In some countries, violence is socially accepted. All right. And finally, you have the narrow framing. So mental structures that we use to construct reality, they highlight some aspects and they erase, they make other aspects obscure. Okay? So those three elements, they are built in some companies and we end up having terrible stuff. Okay? Terrible results. Let me see how you guys are doing so far here. Please raise your hand, make thumbs up here if you guys can understand or if you want to make a question. I'm just about to start telling you a story and it's a scary one, okay? Quem é que gosta de histórias de terror? Eu vou começar a contar para vocês uma história de terror corporativo aqui. Uma daquelas coisas que é inacreditáveis de se ouvir, mas que acontecem nas empresas e que para nós aqui a gente costuma olhar e falar assim, não, peraí, isso aqui é uma coisa inadmissível. All right, Morgana is okay, Jaime, André, everybody's doing fine so far. Questions? Okay. Let me see one thing here. Yeah, we still have time. Ok, obrigado, Igor. Obrigado, André. Obrigado a todo mundo que sinalizou aí. Okay, guys, so we're talking about strong context, ethical blindness, and narrow framing. Enquadramento limitado, enquadramento encurtado, contextos fortes e cegueira ética. Okay, these three things will be working together in an organization. And I'm telling you an example right now. Okay, so what you see over there is the image of a car bursting in fire, right? You don't want to be inside a car like this, right? Okay, so this is a Ford Motor Company automobile. é um automóvel da Ford. A model that is similar to this, but not exactly the same one, was sold in Brazil. Here it was called Corcel. Long time ago. Há muito tempo atrás, um carro parecido com esse modelo foi vendido, foi negociado aqui no Brasil. Se chamava Corcel. Depois teve Corcel 2, vários modelos daquela mesma linha. But what is the story about Ford Pinto? First, what the hell is Pinto? Okay, so Pinto, it's like a little chicken, right? In English, if you hear the word Pinto, you understand little chicken. In Brazil, you wouldn't call a car Pinto, right? For obvious reasons. But then again, so Ford Pinto was a very important model of cars produced by Ford in a very specific moment of the 20th century. So let me tell you a little bit the context that this society is living. First, you have to understand that in America, having a car is a necessity. I mean, many cities in the United States, you don't have public transportation good enough so that you can go to work and come back home, I don't know, using a train, using the subway, or using, I don't know, the buses. Many cities in the US, you need a car, right? So American people have this, I don't know, love for their automobiles, and it's like a cultural thing. By the 70s, the price of gasoline was going up very fast. You guys have heard about a crise do petróleo de 73, so on. So in America, economical vehicles become more popular. As pessoas começam a querer comprar carros mais econômicos. And this was supposed to be one of the most economical cars available. But in order to sell, in order to get good sales, in order to become an important player in this market, you could not sell a car like this for more than $2,000 at the time. So, naquele momento, você não podia vender um carro como esse, um carro compacto, um carro pequeno, econômico, por mais de $2.000. All the researches that market and sales department have made, all researchers pointed out very clearly, if you raise the price of this product higher than $2,000, you're not gonna sell. So there was this pressure there. There was also pressure from Japanese cars. So cars coming from abroad, they were being sold in America, and they were much cheaper than American cars. So you had this kind of strong competition from imported cars. É bem verdade que hoje você tem nos Estados Unidos carros japoneses, carros coreanos sendo produzidos e dominando grande parte da indústria de automóveis nos Estados Unidos. São carros de tecnologia estrangeira, mas são produzidos lá. In the 70s, that's not what was happening. The cars were coming from abroad, and they were selling faster than American cars. They were smaller, they were more economical, so it was a tough job. I mean, I didn't want to be at Ford's shoes at that moment. So you have a strong competition, you have a pressure to not raise the price of this after a certain level. And then you have this car bursting in flames. What is that about? So let me give you some more details about this story. It turns out that this car, who has the gas tank at the back, so at the back of the vehicle, you have the gas tank. If the car was hit from the back, it would, at a certain frequency, it would burst in flames. Sorry. It was not always, but it happened quite frequently and predictably. Então, havia já estudos na própria empresa indicando que se houvesse colisão traseira, tinha uma chance relativamente boa do carro explodir em chamas. But then they said, okay, how frequent that is, and how important that information is. It turns out that in the 70s, we didn't have all the regulation. We didn't have safety belts. A gente não tinha cinto de segurança como obrigatório nos automóveis. E não tinha extintor de incêndio como obrigatório. Safety was not a good seller. People didn't care about safety when they were buying cars. They just bought the cars. And most of the accidents like this, the one that you are just seeing here, they were considered someone else's fault. You know, if someone hit the car, maybe the blame is the other car. I mean, the other car is to blame. It's not this car. Oh yeah, but it happens quite frequently with this specific model. So they said, yeah, there's a problem here. And then at this point, one of these guys that end up being a management professor, Dennis Goya, he was like a big shot in Ford at Ford at that time. And so he was like the most important executive of the company. And he actually faced the numbers and analyzed the situation. So what they did kind of a cost-benefit analysis. Check the benefits, check the costs. They said, all right, how often this thing is happening? Oh yeah, it's such and such percentage of collisions will generate this kind of tragedy. All right, so if this thing happens, how much do we have to pay? What? Yeah. How much in court a judge will have that we, Ford Company, have to compensate the victim? Well, that's kind of a scary question to make, but that's it. Yeah, it's $200,000. A cada vez que você tinha uma vítima, alguém morrendo, em média, você tinha que indenizar a família daquela pessoa em $200 mil. So they said, okay, so it happens like 12 times a month, $200,000. So this is going to be such and such. They just multiply and say, okay, that's how much it costs to just keep paying. Just keep compensating people for those tragedies. And to what we will compare this amount? Well, we will have to check how much we would have to spend to fix the car, how much more expensive the car would become, and how many sales we would lose because our car is more expensive now. So let's make these calculations here. Yeah. Oh yeah, it's much more expensive than just keep paying indemnizations and compensations. You see what these guys did? They said, once someone put a number, a dollar number, a dollar figure to the loss of lives, they said, okay, we can calculate now. And then we say, yeah, it's worth, let's keep paying. So they actually decided that they should keep going with this model, with all the limitations that it had, with the high risk of bursting into flames, the high risk of causing the death of people, because they said, well, it's an economical decision. It makes more money for this company. Now, I think I saw someone raising their hand here. I don't know if it is a question or a comment, but I would like to ask you a question. Do you think this is just cold-hearted people? Do you think this is just bad people? Obviously, there is some ethical issues here, but there are some ethical issues here. But my question is, do you think that these are bad people and they should go to jail or be killed, or I don't know? This is just like how evil people are. What do you think? Vocês acham que esse tipo de decisão, em que eu calculo o valor das mortes que eu estou indenizando, os valores que eu tenho que pagar de indenização, comparo com quanto que eu vou perder de vendas, quanto que eu vou gastar para adaptar o carro e tudo, falo assim, ah não, é mais fácil continuar pagando quando morrerem pessoas. Vocês acham que isso é apenas uma decisão que mostra como as pessoas, como que essa empresa Ford era povoada de pessoas desonestas, inescrupulosas e frias? Do you think that this is the problem? What do you guys have to tell me? Come on, guys, I want to hear you.
Não acho, professor. Assim, tem uma série de coisas que você deve observar. Mas, assim, por as pessoas estarem tomando esse tipo de decisão, isso não necessariamente faz com que elas sejam mais. E no livro, particularmente, mais específico no livro, o ator, no caso, o personagem principal, ele é uma dessas pessoas que calculam o quanto vale a vida das pessoas e se assim, e se é viável ou não fazer recall, né? Lá ele trabalha numa empresa que calcula o quanto é viável, então se é viável ou não fazer recall, aí eles vão gastar tanto. Aí é melhor indenizar, então eles deixam as pessoas morrerem. Basicamente também é dessa mesma maneira. Mas sim, enfim, voltando. Eu não acho que seja que torne as pessoas mais, necessariamente, entendeu? Ou ruim, né? Não usar uma palavra tão pejorativa. Porque isso eu acho que cabe mais naquele sentido do legalmente aceito, porém não tão moralmente digerido. Como, tipo, sei lá, o que eu considero, tipo, uso capião. Que tu pode, sei lá, 20, 15 anos morando na casa de alguém, de repente tu entra na justiça pedindo, dizendo que aquilo é teu. Legalmente é aceito, mas talvez moralmente fique um pouco indigesto.
É, excelente ponto, Morgana. Assim, os exemplos que você deu, primeiro, alguns deles confirmam exatamente o que esse caso aqui acontece, tá? Vai até ver ali mais embaixo escrito, dizendo que tinha um time de recall que analisou a questão e falou assim, olha, para a gente definir que esse modelo vai ter um recall, tem que passar pelo critério A, B e C. Não, aqui ó, só atendeu o critério A e B, então não vamos fazer recall. Então, assim, as pessoas ali, eu falo, não, qual que é a minha função aqui? Minha função é verificar os critérios. A, B e C. Tá aqui, ó. Nesse caso que eu estou analisando, só passou no critério A e B. Não preciso fazer nada. Toca o barco. The point is, the real question is, we know that this company is unethical, but what about the people inside the company? Are they necessarily unethical? A empresa está sendo antiética, está sendo imoral. As pessoas que estão trabalhando na empresa, elas necessariamente estão sendo imorais? A maioria das pessoas tende a responder assim: o chefe tá, o trabalhador que está ali vai fazer o quê? Ele pode perder o emprego, ele tem medo do que pode acontecer e tal. A gente gosta de dividir assim, o bonzinho e o mal. E nessa divisão, a gente tem praticamente uma tendência universal a achar que o empresário é ganancioso, só quer saber de lucro, explora os pobrezinhos dos trabalhadores. Ele sim, ele é o bandido, é o maldoso, é o malvado. Os trabalhadores, pobrezinhos, eles não sabem de nada. Mas e os engenheiros? What about if you are like one of the top engineers in this company? You know what's going on. I mean, Dennis Goya himself, he was an engineer. He knew exactly what was going on, technically speaking. And later on, as people asked him, I mean, this guy, he became a famous management professor. So he was teaching a course like this to MBA students, and he was trying to say, look, I didn't realize how bad it was. I looked at the problem and I said, well, it's very unfortunate. We don't want people to die, but this is very little. I mean, it's a rare thing. It doesn't happen all the time. Most of the people will never burst into flames in our cars. And they are buying a very good car. It's an expensive, it's fine, it's reliable, it's economical. So I'm helping a lot of people, and some people here, unfortunately, are being killed. So it turns out that these guys couldn't see exactly how bad it was. And it's easy for us to point the finger and say, here, the president of the company, here, the director, here, the top engineer, these guys are evil. But if you stop and asking them and try to understand their point of view, they will show you that they are part of a context. And in that context, it's hard to see what's going on. Now we are not back in the 70s. We are in 2021. How companies today deal with this problem? Como é que as empresas hoje lidam com um problema como esse? Sobre a sua eventual incapacidade de enxergar internamente os problemas éticos da sua operação, do seu produto, do impacto que o seu produto tem sobre outras pessoas. What do you think? Have you guys heard about governance? Vocês já ouviram falar da expressão governança? Coloca um joinha para cima aí se vocês já ouviram. Governança. Quem que já ouviu falar dessa expressão? O Igor já ouviu, André também. Quem mais? Tem alguém falando alguma coisa aqui no chat? A maioria de vocês já ouviu falar de governança. Pronto, a ideia de ESG tem tudo a ver com isso, tá, gente? ESG é Environment and Social Governance. So, how we do that? Como é que a gente traz essa leitura social, ambiental, para dentro da tomada de decisão da empresa? We do that by inviting people from outside the company to look at the books, look at the plants, look and say, is it okay? We think it's okay. Do you think it's okay? So you have to trust someone else. You have to have people from outside the company to look and say, no, this is not right. No, this is, you crossed the line here. If you went this far, it's okay. But as you move this and this and this, no, you can't do that. And why do they do this? Por que que uma empresa contrata gente de fora para ficar se vigiando? Or you have to conclude that it's because they are going to make more money. Você tem que concluir que dessa forma a empresa deve fazer mais dinheiro. A verdade, gente, é que hoje as empresas reconhecem o risco que o senhor Denis Goya não reconhecia, que é o risco reputacional. A reputação da Ford foi profundamente prejudicada nos 5, 10 anos seguintes. Uma boa parte das razões por que a Ford declinou, perdeu grande parte das suas vendas, grande parte do seu apelo comercial no mercado americano, foi por causa desse escândalo. Não aconteceu de uma hora para outra. Foi passar dos anos. As pessoas lembravam, mesmo depois que o carro tinha sido tirado de circulação, de vez em quando aparecia uma reportagem. De vez em quando um carro antigo ainda estourava em chamas, reportagem nacional. Today, I don't know if you guys know this, but if a company do some stuff that you consider unethical, and you have a cell phone like this, you can destroy that company. As long as you film it, you record it, the company may be in serious trouble. They end up finished, end of line. If you record and you throw it in at YouTube. So companies are going for these new models of governance, not because they are, I don't know, religious, and they became, oh yes, we love people, we love the environment, we love Ararinha Azul. No, it's not like this. It's just because they don't do it, they're gonna get out. They're gonna be kicked out of market. That's the point. So it turns out that now reputation is part of the asset of a company. And if you don't take care of that, if you don't build that asset, you're going to get out of the market sooner or later. So let me check a few more elements of this story here, just to make sure that I told you everything. Several engineers, none of them seem to understand the gravity of the issue. You had to sell the car for $2,000 or less. And there was this culture. People don't worry about safety when they are buying car. We are not talking about today. We are talking about the 70s. Lá nos anos 70, a sensibilidade a preço era muito maior do que a sensibilidade à segurança. Essa ideia de fazer testes de colisão não eram obrigatórios. Imagina só. You could launch a new car, start selling it without any sort of test beforehand. I mean, there were some tests, but not collision tests. They were not necessary. They were not obligatory by law. So that thing could happen, not only to Ford, but to any other company. So Pinto Ford was a small car and there was no plan B. The company did not have a plan B. They had to make Pinto work. That's kind of a strange sentence, but anyway, they had to make their strategy work, right? Now, there were also this us versus them ideology. This is very important, guys. Pay attention here, okay? Dentro da empresa, as pessoas se sentiam parte da empresa. Todo mundo que criticava a empresa era visto como eles e nós. Então, eles que estão lá defendendo a entrada desses carros japoneses que vão destruir os empregos americanos, nós, uma empresa americana, genuinamente americana, nós não podemos deixar que eles acabem conosco. All right, so those are the elements of this case study. Let me recommend to you guys this course, okay? If you want to learn more about unethical decisions in organizations, I highly recommend you guys take a look at this. You go to Coursera, and then you can search for unethical decision making, unethical organizations, and you're probably gonna have something like this. You're gonna see this. Let me stop sharing my screen here and get another one. There we go. I'm gonna show you the course. Just a second. All right. So here you have. And then you have that video. Can you guys hear the sound that is playing? You guys can hear the sound of the video that I'm playing? Can you? No, you can't hear the sound. You just see the image, right? Yeah, I realize it now. So then again, so this is unethical decision making in organizations. These two guys here, Guido Palazzo and Hofstridge, they are very good professor. Ulrich Hofstridge. These are two very good professors, and this is one of those free courses. By the way, I should mention this too. You guys, as students at UFRPE, you can access a very large number of good courses at Coursera, all right? We have this agreement, o UFRPE tem convênio com a Coursera, and you guys can take many, many interesting classes as long as you, I don't know, you are willing to be taught in English or in French or in Spanish. You can always use subtitles. A maioria dos cursos tem legendas, você pode traduzir para português ou para outras línguas. And once again, como estudante da UFRPE, se você fizer o seu cadastro e usando o seu e-mail institucional, você tem acesso a uma gama muito maior de cursos do que aqueles que estão disponíveis de graça para todo mundo. So it's a good tip. You guys can practice a language, you guys can learn about different topics, and I highly recommend this one, okay? Unethical Decision Making in Organizations. I took the course and I learned a lot. That's why I'm suggesting you guys to have a look at this, okay? Okay, so questions, comments, what have you guys for me? Perguntas, comentários, reclamações ou sugestões? So far, so good? Let me ask you one thing before I let you guys go. Do you think this topic of today's class is an important one? Do you think we should discuss this thing here at university? Or no, maybe, things are like that, we don't have to care about this. Quem acha que esse é um assunto importante que a gente deveria discutir? O Igor acredita que é um assunto muito importante. Quantos cursos que vocês acham que nós temos no departamento de engenharia sobre esse assunto? Quase nenhum. E no departamento de administração? Bom, tem lá cursos sobre governança, aí talvez fale um pouco sobre isso. Tem curso sobre cultura organizacional, talvez fale um pouquinho sobre isso. Guys, this is one of the most important issues here. If you want to deal with topics like sustainability, if you want to deal with topics like immigration, prejudice, hunger, if you want to deal with big global issues, we have to understand that many of those things behave within companies or within organizations and because of them. As organizações, as empresas, elas fazem parte dos grandes problemas globais. Se a gente não discutir esse assunto com textos fortes, cegueira ética e enquadramento limitado, enquadramento restrito, narrow framing, if we don't discuss these things here, you will never hear about it. I don't think that just because you had this class, if you are in a company, you are gonna, I don't know, become the revolutionary. It's not like this. But you're gonna be able to recognize, and sometimes you're gonna have the chance to make tough questions. And sometimes it makes a huge difference. Depending on the way you make a question, you can help a lot. So let's work this, I don't know, hypothetical case here. Let's suppose that you are in a meeting and your boss is telling you guys, you, the team, you are as a team member, the boss is telling you what the team is supposed to do. And you are one of the members in the team. Let's suppose that you realize that what you are hearing, it looks like what you have just seen. Like strong context, narrow framing, and ethical blindness. Let's suppose that you realize that those things are working there. What I will tell you is that you should not raise your hand in public and embarrass your boss. But you should wait after the meeting, come to your boss and say, eu não sei se eu estou fora da linha aqui ao falar isso, mas tem alguma coisa errada nessa decisão. Você não acha, não? Enough. Like, please don't try to be a hero. Please don't leave the job and go to the newspapers. It's not what I'm talking. But sometimes you can help people wake up and realize that bad things are happening. And if you do that, if you raise consciousness in a careful way, you can make the whole difference. I truly believe in that, Sometimes you may lose your job. Yes, that's true. Sometimes you may get kicked out. Sometimes you may even get sued. I mean, they can take you to court. Eles podem te processar. Mas eu acho que algumas vezes, se você esperar o momento certo, chamar a pessoa certa e falar assim, eu acho que a gente deveria repensar, porque tem alguma coisa me cheirando muito mal aqui. Estou vendo as pessoas tomando decisão sem pensar, estou vendo as pessoas fechando os olhos para algumas coisas que estão de fora do radar. Talvez as pessoas não estejam vendo as consequências disso. So I think awareness, consciousness is the big solution here, all right? I truly believe that some of you guys will be leaders. I have seen that before. I have been teaching economics for more than 20 years now. And I know people that took these classes, like at UFRPE, and they are not, now they are bosses. They are big shots in big companies. It has happened. And I'm very glad to tell you that some of these people remember this sort of stuff. And they are aware of that. Sometimes they can do something about it. Sometimes they can't. But they have to, I mean, it's good that they have discussed this in college. I mean, that's why we are really here, right? We are not only teaching you some techniques and giving you some tools. We are trying to build a more mature, more capable professional. And that means we have to discuss ethical issues. All right? Okay, guys, I think this is it I have for you. I don't know if you guys still have some questions. Let me have a look here at the chat. Okay, so all of you agree with me that this is very important. Agatha, eu acho importante e é interessante. O André, acho que deveríamos discutir sim, é um tópico muito importante, mas na realidade não vai haver mudança dentro das organizações. I see your point, André. I mean, I'm also skeptical. I know that these things will not change immediately, but I think that good companies, as time goes, they are gonna be on the spotlight. As melhores vão começar a ganhar destaque. E ainda que você tenha aquelas empresas em que isso nunca vai entrar na cabeça do dono, logo, logo essas pessoas estão ameaçadas de perder o seu negócio. Igor, eu acho que esse tópico deveria ser importante dentro da grande maioria dos cursos. Inclusive, incluindo essa afirmativa. All right, guys. So Any questions, any comments, or we are ready to go? Sextou. How many of you still have classes tonight? Some other classes. Please raise your hand or make thumbs up there. Oh, you're all free to go? This is it? The week is over? Sextou, sextou. All right, good, Igor. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night. Enjoy your weekend. I'll see you next time, okay? Bye-bye. Take it easy. Be careful. Use masks. Ciao, Andrea. Bye-bye. Thank you. Good night, Jamile. Igor, good night. Marcelo, take it easy. I'll see you guys next time.